If you cannot cope with the daily news, you need to catch up with the week that was. Welcome to a second episode of The Week That Was. To discuss the issues of this week, we have with us a well-known journalist and group editor of Herald publication, Mr. Sujay Gupta. Welcome once again to our program. There is a lot that has happened during this week, and we choose to bring before our readers the main headlines. So let us go to the first headline of the week, which is certainly the main headline and the main news which forms part of this week. It began with this headline and it concluded with a success, and within a very short time we have got results, and that we are talking about is the protest where thousands of people gathered at Old Goa to protest against the illegal structure. First of all, the Chief Minister pretended not to know about this protest when the one-day fast, the indefinite fast began on Wednesday. But surprisingly, on the second day, the Deputy Chief Minister says that permission will not be given for this project, or rather it will be withdrawn.
Freddie, I'll break this story into a couple of segments because each is very important. We must understand the context in which all this is happening. For viewers who do not know and who may have missed the news, I think it's very important to point out that this all began when permission to build a structure, which we use the word structure, but in effect it's a huge villa. Yes. And a villa project which was kind of owned or had some connections with the senior top brass of the BJP and other political parties as well. Yes. The point that one is trying to make here is that these permissions were accorded in absolute violation of not only the existing Archaeological Survey of India laws, but if you recall, there was a tripartite agreement when Louisine Falero was the Chief Minister, an agreement which specified that there would be no activity of this nature which would potentially damage or threaten the heritage structures and the heritage precinct of Old Goa. Yes. Of course, this agreement very few people know about, and it's been violated rampantly from time to time. If you look at even the regional plan of 2011, during that time there was a huge agitation by the activists, the Goa Bachao Abhiyan, which said that look, at the end of the day, even the regional plan did not actually account for protection of that heritage precinct, because of which development permissions were given. And we are all aware of a certain local MLA of Kumbarjua who has made major constructions and grabbed land all around there. So this is just not a one-off incident. The assault on the heritage of Goa by powers that be, with full connivance of the government in power, is an ongoing process. What we see now is the fact that people have risen in revolt against this monstrosity that was coming next to the St. Cajetan Church. Yeah. The shocking part of this is that the permissions that were given and the party which is under attack now, and rightly so, yeah, turns around and the basic bone of contention is, why are people objecting to a project that has been legally passed? My point is that how was the project passed? The first brick was laid when the foundation of this illegality lies in not Old Goa but in the village of Parshe in Perne. Yeah. Okay, because the permission to actually start the work here and the NOCs were given for repairs of a structure
which was somewhere else,
and the structure does not even exist there. It exists in Parshe. They showed a picture of Parshe, yeah, passed it off as a structure in Old Goa and decided to give permissions. Now everything that follows is a farce. So what has happened now is the government, firstly I'll get to what the Chief Minister has feigned ignorance, as he's good in a situation like this, because he didn't want to enter into he didn't want to touch a hot potato. Babu Kavlekar as TCP minister very cleverly said that look, at the end of the day, I'm revoking permissions because the permissions were not even given during my tenure.
He blames the predecessor.
The point here is that any concession that they're giving to the people now, saying that we've given permission or we've instructed for revocation of the TCP license based on which this project is going, this wouldn't have happened if elections were not 3 months down the corner. In the same manner that the farm bills have been withdrawn, the same spirit has gone into the decision of the TCP minister to revoke these licenses. And it is, I would say, it is perhaps a step in the right direction, but it is not a step born out of any love for Goa's heritage by the government. It is completely looking at the elections that are around the corner.
Definitely.
That is the context.
On Wednesday, the 24th, you have another headline in the Herald, the Voice of the People. Act or we march, traditional fishermen's ultimatum to the government. Now, this is also a long festering issue wherein the fishermen have constantly complained to the fisheries department and to the government, saying that Malpe fishermen and fishermen from other states are coming into Goan waters using high voltage LED lights. They are using high capacity motors and they are doing bull trawling. Now, this plea of the fishermen has constantly fallen on deaf ears, and the biggest problem is that this has also a linkage to the diet of the people. They are posing this big problem that after some time Goa may not have fish, because at the rate at which they are fishing, they say that 2 or 3 months fish is taken out of the waters within a day or two.
Dr. Fernandez, you see, the thing is, I would again look at this issue from a slightly broader angle, and there's a context to this as well. You see that this is the issue of traditional fishermen is not only an issue of livelihoods, it's also an issue of lives. It's livelihoods and lives. The reason I'm saying this is because all along that coastal area, if you look at Veli, you look at Betul, you look at all those jetties and along the coastal belt up to Welsam. If you look at that whole coastal belt and other parts, but this is more pronounced there. If you see the life that people led for many years, it was a very, very idyllic, beautiful life that people on the coast led. Fishing was not just a profession, it was a way of life. I remember people telling me that, on any day, you didn't have too much of food at home, or the lady of the house did not cook. They would just take the little boat or canoe and just step out into the river and just get lots of fish, bring the fish back. That would become their lunch. That would also become, the catch would also become their source of earning. They would also barter that fish with their neighbor and in turn get vegetables and rice. This was the traditional living that people lived. So at some level, while we are talking of the economics of it, which is of course very serious, at some level it also hurts people because they don't see the fish as some outside resource. They see it as part of their lives. It's almost like saying that I'm going into my kitchen and I'm not getting my food, because the river is not external to them. It is intrinsic to their lives. Okay, so it's almost like saying I'm going into my own home and not getting food which nature has given to me. So one has to look at the sentiment of this along with the practicalities of what is actually happening. And of course, now getting back to the real issue of LED lights, yes, it is happening because, believe me, we are talking of big trawlers with LED lights coming from outside states. Freddy, the issue is that it is happening even here. There are fishermen here also who are doing it, but people are not talking about it. But surely people from outside states, when they come and do it, it hurts more, and there is an absolute ban on doing it, and there is no will or wherewithal to tackle it. There is no will because at the end of the day, the government of the day does not look at fishermen and look at their issues seriously. No wherewithal, I'll tell you why. Because to catch the trawlers from outside coming in, these rogue trawlers that come in with LED lights, what is the wherewithal that you need? You need proper interceptor boats. Now, under the coastal police station, I know for a fact that there are 9 coastal police stations which do not have interceptor boats all along that coast, or even if they do, they have not been in operation and there are no funds to repair them. So how can you have a coastal police which does not even have a interceptor boat to catch an LED laden trawler to come in. And last time, I'll just take a minute more. Last time this happened, last time they caught these vessels from outside the state coming in, they had to take a help of a local sports operator come fisherman called Pele Fernandez from Benoli, who helped Benoli Varca, that area, who had to give his boat for fishermen, for the police, the coastal police, to get onto that private boat of Pele Fernandez and go and catch them up.
They risk their lives.
And they risk their lives.
Because the other fishermen also carry weapons with them.
Exactly. So this, in short, is what the situation is. So if they have decided to now march for justice, I think it is a very, very sad day for Goa that it has come to this. But this is bound to happen because priorities are not correctly laid out by anybody, including local politicians.
Okay, on the same newspaper on Wednesday the 24th, we have another related news item which talks about the pollution which is taking place in the River Sal. Again, this is a long festering problem, and traditional fishermen are living on the edge because again here it's also their livelihood is very, very, very much in peril. And the reason is because there is a lot of pollution in the River Sal which has been ignored for decades together, and now it has come to a point where 75% of the shellfish is in danger of extinction.
In this story, we have quoted a person called Remedios Crasto. He's a traditional fisherman. He's being quoted in this story. What Remedios Crasto says, and I'm beginning my response with his words. He talks about how you have your traditional fish there, the oysters and others. What they do is when there is an oil spill from the boats, when there is pollution from the boats, the marine life there, they consume that. It goes into the different pores of your oysters and other fish. So on each passing day, on every day, the marine life there is actually consuming the filth and the pollution to deathly effect. So there are two things happening. If they survive, then the marine fish which is caught is completely polluted and the ultimate consumer gets affected. If they do not survive, in any case, marine life is getting completely dead. And so this is an extension of our previous discussion just before that. So not only are LED lights coming in sucking out the fish that are there, but the remaining fish are also getting affected by pollution. So the idea is that when you come to Goa and you enjoy your fish, the fish that you eat is not actually fish from here. One is and people are paying very, very high price for this. So what is shocking is that even buying and eating fish 2 times a day or even one time a day for lunch or dinner has gone beyond the affordability of many Goans.
Then we move on to Thursday, November 25th, where there is a news item which is the lead story in the Herald, where the government has proposed to auction about 8 mining blocks by December 15th. Now, the present BJP government has not been able to restart mining for the last 7 years when they have been in power, although they have made promises to the contrary. Now, the thing that we need to discuss here is, once this auction is carried out, and we hope they follow the rule book when this auction is carried out, who will be the person who will win this auction? Are these big agents from outside Goa who will take over mining? And if that is the case, then what happens to the mining labor? What happens to the owners of the machinery? And what happens to the owners of the mining trucks?
You see, when they made this announcement of auctioning mining blocks, the announcement brought more confusion than clarity. Because nobody is aware of what these mining blocks are all about. We are really in the dark because there is no detailed clarity on what this mining block means. Secondly, the issue is when you say these mining blocks, how many leases come under these blocks?
That's not clear.
Number one. Number two, we still need to know whether the leases that were declared illegal and have finally closed, how will those leases be ultimately operational? Secondly, are the people or the owners of those leases or operators and others whose mining operations were declared illegal and who need to not only answer but at the same time pay their dues back into the government, because there's a lot of recovery to be done and recovery notices have been also issued. Will those parties be allowed to participate in this auction or not? So there are two things where we are totally in the dark about. One is the extent of these mining blocks, how many leases get impacted or not, whether the same players who were earlier involved in illegal mining, will they be back in operation? These are three vital questions that are needed. At the same time, we do not quite know how the mining corporation, which is actually a good thing on paper, how will that mining corporation come into being? Who is going to look after the mining corporation? Will the mining corporation be just a facilitator, or will it perform the role of a giant mining company with its scientists and geologists and everywhere with all, so that they themselves can allot the license to extract, and they can get contractors on board to do it with their own expertise.
So that question is also there, what will be the role of those people who win the auction? Is it extracting only, or is it extracting and selling?
As things stand now and the way the government works, the government from whatever we know in so many years and having looked at the sector very closely, it will be fair to assume that the government of the day intends to hand over the entire process and be just a facilitator, as things were earlier, which actually means that they would very readily allow the contractor to also export, which I think therein lies the problem. We totally understand therein lies the problem. That is not what is desirable, that is not what people want. There are alternatives in place which have been completely laid out. There has to be a proper discussion with all the stakeholders and with all political parties, everybody, and there should be a joint kind of decision after a lot of thought and research. There's been a lot of thought already put into it by the non-government sector. They should be completely involved in the process, and a way should be found out with one bottom line, that the state is merely a custodian of the mineral resources that are owned and belong to the people of Goa.
Now, how do you measure up to this logic? Because if, for example, they extract and they sell, it goes back more or less in a different form to the old system that was existing.
Precisely.
So they can make
therein lies
a
the
huge
problem.
Profit. They can
I understand that. So that is the reason why this has to happen. I'm sure there are a lot of grey areas which we cannot cover or unable to cover in the realm of this discussion, but it is safe to assume that there's a lot that is not answered. There is a lot that has not been taken into account. It has to be a very holistic exercise. You also have to take into account the fact that we are talking of iron ore, but what is extracted does not only consist of iron ore. The ore that is extracted has a lot of minerals. So when you win that ore, you're not only winning iron ore, you're winning all of the material which has been lost for generations by not putting value to that. So all these things are need to be looked at, but we are unable to do it or don't want to do it.
But the CM has closed the doors on any RTI which can be filed against the Goa.
That is absolutely uncalled for and can be challenged in any court of law. You cannot. I know you are referring to the RTI's. In fact, RTI activist Saket Gokhale has filed an RTI against or questioning the CM's interview or a statement to another English newspaper, where he has said that I am not going to give information, because if I give this particular information, then people might go to court.
And it will delay the process.
It will delay the process. So you are essentially concealing information about how the mining process is going to take place, and who are you concealing it from? You are concealing it from the very people who are actually the owners of that ore. You and I are all owners of that ore.
As the Supreme Court itself
Yes.
has said.
So when the CM is saying that I will not tell you how this mining corporation is going to take place, in simple language, what he is saying, or what he think he is saying, is that I will not tell the owner of the ore what the future of mining is going to be. It basically means that. So that needs to, obviously, the RTI which has been filed by Saket Gokhale is only to ask him that, look, did you actually make this statement? And if you made this statement, under what law did you make this statement? And can you, under the RTI law, actually say that I'm not going to disclose, because this is not some trade secret,
Yeah.
and is not disturbing law and order and peace of the country. So on what basis can you withhold it back? It's a very fair question.
When we look up the Friday issue of the Herald, which is dated November 26th, there is a huge headline which says, Maersk's arm of Atal Setu to be shut for 1 month, even 100 days wasn't enough. Now, this was touted as the showpiece of the BJP government right from the days of Chief Ministership of Manohar Parrikar, and you have a grand opening ceremony with the Union Minister participating in this, and this was shown as the masterpiece of development of Goa. Now, when you look at the things which have subsequently occurred, you have closure of the bridge one after another, and the latest closure is from November 28th to the peak of the tourist season, which is about 15-16 December. Now, how does one, if you are a taxpayer, how do you look at this, that a new bridge in constant need of repairs?
I'll start on a slightly lighter note. The person who will be most insulted about the way the Atal Setu has literally crumbled is the late Honorable Atal Bihari Vajpayee himself. Because a bridge in his name, if it suffers this ignominy, then, and under a government of his own party, it's a matter of shame for that party and for the memory of Atalji, whose name was attached to this bridge with a lot of respect and love.
Very much.
Okay, so I think that should actually poke the powers that be firstly. And if they can't respect Atal Bihari Vajpayee's memory to get things in order, then they should hang their heads in shame. Number one.
Rightly so.
Secondly, coming to taxpayers' money, at the end of the day, directly or indirectly, we have all paid for every brick on that bridge and every pole which has been constructed at humongous prices, much over and above the rates for those poles.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we have paid through our nose in some way or the other. And why did we pay through our nose? To see to it that there was a smooth flow of traffic from one end of the state to other end of the state, taking into account the rising traffic which was there. We suffered for almost 2 to 3 years when the bridge was being built, and we thought the sufferings were over.
Yeah.
Okay, there were big signboards saying today's pain is tomorrow's gain. But today's pain is also yesterday's pain is today's pain, and it's becoming tomorrow's pain. When will the pain end? Number one. Number two, when we talk about money and take taxpayers' money, there is one contractor who has been the supreme commander of all construction of all these bridges there. L&T is the principal contractor for this bridge. They obviously have now given it to the ground level contractor who executes it. The point is that L&T is an internationally known, reputed firm. Okay, we do not know what the issues are. We are not saying that L&T is responsible for the degradation of the bridge. But my issue is all that is required from the state to its vendor. L&T is your vendor, to at least ask, number one, why are there cost overruns? Why is there a delay? What is the reason for this shoddy work? And what is the reason for this bridge crumbling?
The whole question of accountability.
Okay, I will also go a step further. The reason why they are not asking this is because they are afraid of the answers that L&T might also give them. Because there is a lot of secrets hidden in these kind of deals. We all know that why is shoddy material used for bridges and construction. Ultimately, a shoddy material is used to cut costs. Why do costs have to be cut? We all know. So I am essentially saying is that the people demand answers. If the government is transparent, which we hope to believe it is, then the government should ask straight questions from the contractor and vendors as to please give us reasons why there has been a delay. The reason when you don't ask questions is because you are afraid of the answers. And that's exactly what has happened.
So basically what we are presuming is there is a huge amount of corruption which has taken place, because this we see not only with Atal Setu, but if you just see the flyover which has been erected in front of the GMC, same is the story with that flyover itself, where it is supposed to be a cemented bridge, a cemented flyover, but we have tar being put over this.
See, I would always like to believe that the government of the day is holier than thou always, and the government of the day works for the welfare of the people. And if it works for the welfare of the people, it will do its best to remove any stink of corruption by being transparent and do an inquiry. This is always the grand belief that we have. So we will wait and see. If it does not happen, then we are bound to ask questions. The point is that if there is a stink of corruption, it is the onus of the government to remove that stink. So far it has not happened, and then you delay the reopening of the already, the bridge is bad, it gets repaired, you say we are going to repair it in 3 months, you again extend it by 1 month, it leads to an absolute misery and chaos. We all know the commuting time between Margao and Panjim or other parts of North Goa beyond that has gone up by an hour and a half. So how much of man hours are we losing? How much of petrol is being spent? With petrol costs going up and people running their engines in those traffic jams, your petrol costs go up.
And pollution also.
But what I'm saying is that, does anybody bother? Does anybody think you suddenly decide I'm going to extend it by 1 month? Why wasn't it done in 3 months? And why did it take for you to announce this on the last day when the deadline extends? You say we are going to extend it. What is the correspondence that happened between say 20 days earlier and now? Did you wake up only on the last day? Why did you give them any warnings? Did you give them any ultimatums? There was nothing, and there is no accountability. That is the reason why Herald went to town with this. We did not see it as a routine one-column story saying it's been extended. We reacted with a lot of anger and force on page 1, and we are proud of doing that.
And that's basically voicing the angst of the people.
Of course, that is much more important than any story on that particular day.
I'm afraid that we are running out of time. Again, it has been a very fascinating discussion with Mr. Sujay Gupta sharing his insights, giving a context to the issues that have been raised. And again, we have been able in this week to put forth the issues of the people, issues that concern the people of Goa. I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fernandes, for the show and for the topics that you've chosen. And I think hopefully this will add to the value of many Goans who want depth beyond just news.
So we hope to be back with another set of stories for the next week. Be with us to catch up with the news of the week over a cup of coffee. Thank you so much for watching. Join us again. Thank you.